Hi, my name is Brian Puffolks. I'm an immigration attorney with Puffolks Law Firm. Puffolks Law Firm is a full-service immigration law firm that serves clients throughout all 50 states as well as many countries around the world. Today, I'm going to be discussing efforts by the United States to create a new immigration law and concrete steps that you can be doing right now to prepare for any new law. Before we get started, please take a moment to like this video and to also subscribe to the channel so that you can be aware of any future content. So let's get started. A lot of my clients have been asking me, is there a new law, or can they expect a new law, or what should they be doing to prepare for a new law? And that excitement has been generated in large part because President Biden, when he first got elected, he proposed the Citizenship Act of 2021. The Citizenship Act of 2021, if it became law, would provide a pathway for citizenship for as many as 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States. It's a sweeping, ambitious reform that would be super helpful to many of my clients. The problem is it's very difficult to get that passed. It's always difficult to get immigration legislation passed in this country because immigration traditionally has always been a very toxic issue, and there's a big divide in terms of what the Republicans believe are the priorities for immigration and what the Democrats believe are the priorities for immigration. And even within the parties, there is oftentimes a big split in terms of the moderates and the people on the left, or the moderates and the people on the right. And so it's very tricky and difficult to get immigration legislation passed. And this year is no different. Since President Biden proposed that sweeping legislation, there have been some bills that have been introduced in the House, and there have been two key bills that have passed the House. The problem is getting those bills signed off and passed in the Senate. One particular bill, the American Dream and Promise Act, passed the House, which is not as ambitious as the Citizenship Act of 2021, but nevertheless would provide help for as many as 6 million undocumented immigrants in this country. But again, that bill is stalled in the Senate. So because of this intransience that exists, generally speaking, in the Congress, and particularly around immigration issues, there are a number of Democrats who are looking at a different way to get an immigration law passed. And this is one of the things I want to discuss with you today. They're looking at the process of budget reconciliation as a way of getting an immigration law passed. The budget reconciliation process is basically inserting policy language that has a budgetary impact into the budget resolutions that get passed. And the reason you would do that is one of the key things about the budget resolution process is that it does not allow for filibustering. Filibustering is when you need at least 60 votes to get any legislation moving, which is often what jams up getting bills passed through the normal legislative process. So if you can put immigration language into the budget reconciliation process, that would be a way of avoiding a filibuster, and a simple majority in the Senate would be able to pass the budget, which included the immigration language. Now, while that is not an easy process, it, in my opinion, is more plausible than the, let's just say, normal bipartisan legislative process. So Bernie Sanders, Senator from Vermont, Bernie Sanders, is the committee chair of the Budget Committee, and he's proposed. His initial proposal is about a $6 trillion budget, which includes very favorable language for immigrants in this country, which would include dreamers and include farm workers, TPS holders, essential workers, and others, and it would create a pathway for citizenship, among many other things like providing funding for more personnel, etc. However, as I mentioned earlier, there's a big split in the party between moderates and progressives. For example, West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, in his initial discussions, is more likely to support a $2 trillion budget. And there's a big difference, obviously, between $6 trillion and $2 trillion. And besides the funding differences, Many Democrats have other pieces of legislation that they that they would like to include in the budget, whether it's climate or whether it's minimum wage or taxing the wealthy. And so there's going to have to be a lot of discussion between the legislators on what items should be included in the budget bills. And once you have a budget that is agreed upon by at least 50% of the Senate, you would also need to have the Senate parliamentarian, Elizabeth McDonough, to agree to these policy provisions included in the budget. The Senate parliamentarian is often referred to as the Senate referee, and they're the person who will decide whether these provisions are compliant with the Senate rules. And so you need to have agreement between at least 50% of the Senate, and two, it needs to pass legal muster with the Senate parliamentarian. And if we can get that passed, then we have the possibility of seeing a new immigration law. How long will it take? Most people would say that we're looking at least several months. So we would say maybe the end of 2021 or in the first half of 2022. Now, this is the first time in a long time that we might actually see a new immigration law. And so what are some concrete steps that you should be doing right now in preparation of a new law? And frankly, even if we don't see a new law, the things I'm going to recommend right now are things that you should be doing regardless. So here are the 10 things that I think you should be doing right now. One, if you don't have a valid social security number, you should apply for an individual tax identification number. You can speak to a local accountant, to your CPA, to find out how to get a tax identification number, but it's not a difficult process. Okay, you have to fill out the proper form with the IRS so that you can use this number, which is your identification number, to report your income. Two, you should report your income and you should pay any taxes you owed on that income for every year that you've been working. This is very important, one, because it's the law, but two, and let me just clarify, some people get confused. Well, I'm not documented, I don't have permission to work. The law says even if you're not documented, or even if you're working without proper authorization, once you do work, you're required to report that income. And so you will need a Social Security. If you don't have a valid Social Security, you can apply for an individual tax identification number. The second thing is having reported your income is also proof of your physical presence in the United States. And any new law, just as laws in the past have required, will require that you're able to show that you've been continuously present in the United States for a period of time. And so filing taxes is a way that you can prove physical presence in the United States. The third thing you should be doing is you should be gathering all of your identity documents. Make sure you have your birth certificate. If you don't have it, you should contact the proper civil authorities in your country of origin to make sure you have your birth certificate, any consular ID. If you have a passport or multiple passports, try to keep copies of all your passports. If you have a marriage certificate, a divorce decree, just keep copies of all your records. If you have children, have copies of their birth certificates. So a copy of the essential identity documents are important. Number 4, I had mentioned earlier that it's important to be able to show that you've maintained physical presence in the United States. How can you do that besides your taxes? One thing is you can collect copies of lease agreements that you may have had over the years. If you've purchased your home, obviously a mortgage agreement, if you have one. You can have utility bills throughout the years, employment records throughout the years, school records. You may have hospital records, you may have criminal records, whatever records you have, contracts you've entered into. Collect all those documents so that you can maintain year by year that you have been physically and continuously present in the United States. 5, you should tie up all loose ends. If, for example, you have unpaid tickets, you should pay those tickets. If you may have a warrant for your arrest because you had a court date you didn't show up to, you should speak with an attorney to make sure you clear up any warrants that may exist. If you have past taxes that you owe, you should contact the IRS and pay off those taxes. The IRS generally is very good with working out and negotiating a payment plan, and so even if you can't pay off your taxes right away, the government would want to see that you are at least in a payment plan. So if you have any kind of loose ends, now is the time that you can look into your own record to clean up those loose ends. 6, many immigrants have had some kind of interaction with the immigration authorities in the United States. Maybe you submitted some application, maybe you were stopped at the border, maybe you've been in removal proceedings, or otherwise known as deportation proceedings. Maybe you have spoken to ICE officials, or maybe you've applied for a visa in your home country. All of these actions and transactions would leave a fingerprint in the system, and you should make sure that you work on getting copies of all the documents relating to those transactions. The way that you can do that is by requesting this information from the government through the FOIA process, or the Freedom of Information Act process. My office can help submit FOIAs for you to all of the respective agencies, whether it's Customs Border Patrol, whether it's Immigration, Customs and Enforcement, whether it's the immigration courts, whether it's the State Department, whether it's getting records based on your fingerprints. We would be more than happy to help with that, and you can contact me at my office in order to help you with FOIAs. The 7th thing you should be doing is, if you've used an immigration attorney or some kind of agency to help you with your immigration paperwork, you can also contact your former lawyer or anyone that's helped you to get copies of any papers that they may have filed on your behalf that you don't have for yourself. So now is the time to go through your paperwork and look for the names and numbers of people who've helped you, so you can also ask them for copies that they may have. 8, you want to gather any documents that show that you have an outstanding record, or that you've had achievements in this country, which can reflect positively in any applications that might be available through a new immigration law. So take a look at your records. If you have copies of diplomas, degrees, certificates of completion, volunteer work that you've been involved with, anything that kind of shows that you've been someone who has been involved in good works, you'd want to be able to gather some evidence to prove that. 9, you want to gather any identity documents of family members of yours, close family members, or any family members that are U.S. citizens and lawful permanent residents, to show your ties to the United States. So if you have a spouse, or you have children, brothers, sisters, mother, father, and even aunts, uncles, cousins who are U.S. citizens or permanent residents, you can ask them if they'd be kind enough to give you a copy of their birth certificate, a copy of their permanent resident card if they're a green card holder, or a copy of their naturalization certificate if they naturalize, or a copy of their U.S. passport. You just want to have that on hand so that when the time comes, you'll be able to prove that you have many close family members with deep ties to this country. And then finally, number 10, you want to create a comprehensive list of all your family members and all your friends who would be willing and able to write testimony, affidavits about who you are and what a wonderful person you are and the kind of contributions you make to this country. You don't have to ask them to do that now, but instead of waiting to the last minute to come up with a list of people that you think could provide good letters, it's not a bad idea to just start that list right now. Just list everyone that you can think of, whether it's a neighbor of yours that you've been very helpful to, a work colleague, someone you went to school with, family members that know you and can speak to your good moral character. So make that list. Those are the 10 things that you can be doing right now. One, if we get a new law, it would certainly come in handy. But even if we don't have a new law that passes anytime soon, these are things that you can be doing that would put you in a much stronger position once you speak to an immigration attorney who can analyze whether you have a pathway based on current law to gain some status in this country. So if you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call. You can contact me at the phone number below, or you can email me at the phone number below, and myself or any of the attorneys who work for Pooh Folks Law Firm would be happy to assist you. I thank you again for tuning in, and please take a moment to also comment below about what you think about this video, or any questions you have, or topics that you'd like me to speak about in the future, and I'll do my best to speak on topics that you're interested in. Thank you and have a good day.